So it's set up here so that everybody who's here can only see me. I'm the only one who can see everyone else. I want to show your face. I love it because it gives me more energy when I can see people. And it's not required because the experiment is really about having vulnerability with yourself. This time is really meant for you to be with you. And as I have talked about the experiment with people, and I say, it's really about feeling your feelings. A lot of people will say, oh my gosh, that sounds terrible. Or you do this on a call? You know, are people crying on the call? Like, sometimes they are, but I'm the only one who knows, unless I can't even see them. And then I don't even know. And sometimes I'm the one crying. And it's not all about crying. So here's what the experiment is. In the end, oh, and I'm actually wearing my experiment t-shirt today, Feel Your Feelings. It's about feeling your feelings. What it is not about is only feeling the big giant feelings. It's also about feeling the little ones or even the petty ones. It's not only, and this is where a lot of people's minds go, about feeling the negative yucky ones. It's also about feeling the positive yummy ones. You know, and then everything in between. The experiment does not require you to know what you're feeling. So for example, you don't have to say, oh, that is sadness that I am feeling. Oh, that is happiness. There's no requirement of knowing what it is. And one of the things I love about that is, at least for me, when I think about the word guilt as a feeling, there's about a million different ways or things I might feel guilt about that it's a whole different experience. So there's this one word for this range of experiences. Same with sadness, same with happiness, same with joy. So you don't have to know the name of it. However, if you do know the name of the feeling you're feeling, that's fine too. And usually for me, if I know the name of what I'm feeling, that's coming in the form of a thought. And the experiment, for a lot of people who have joined this call, say, oh my gosh, the experiment is a lot like meditation. And that's my experience too, although I don't know that it's meditation. In my experience, in the way that I've been taught to meditate in the past, if you have a thought, it's your job to see it and kind of keep yourself separate from it and, you know, let that thought pass by. In the experiment, that's not your job. Your job is to notice the thought and then feel the feeling of the thought. You don't have to stay separate from it. You don't have to send it away. Thoughts are not bad. They're not a sign that you're doing it right or doing it wrong. They're simply an invitation. Thoughts are an invitation to feel what you're feeling. Other invitations to the experiment are things like, right now, my back is a little bit sore. That is a feeling, the soreness of my back. I'm at home today. I'm sitting in a dining room chair. It's very firm. I can feel the firmness. That feeling, that physical feeling, is also an invitation. There also might be invitations from the experiment in the form of a thought, or also feelings that feel like an emotion, or it might be not so tangible, you know, like I can touch this or feel this. It might be the feeling of a room, or the feeling of a person's mood, or a hunch. Those are also feelings. So feel your feelings. When I say feelings, it's this broad range of experiences that count as feelings. One of my favorite feelings to feel is the feeling of a crowd. That is not a physical feeling or necessarily an emotional feeling. It's simply the feeling of a group of people. Let me see. Is there anything else I want to say? Oh, the experiment was inspired by a book that I read called Letting Go by David Hawkins. It's a very long book that only describes the actual feeling your feelings part in about 3 paragraphs. The rest of the book is about kind of what happens when you do this. There are some distinct differences in what he teaches than what I teach. For example, he says, ignore your thoughts. I say, welcome them and feel them. One of the things he says that I absolutely agree with in my experience is this. He said, what many humans do when they experience an emotion or a feeling is they do one of 3 things. Humans typically will either do everything they can to avoid it. So they escape from it. They get busy trying to not feel it. That's a common thing. I'm certainly good at that. Another thing we do is we shove it down. We repress it. I'm also good at that one. The third thing he says that blew my mind when I read it, that humans do, is we talk about it. We express our feelings. And he says all three of those things, while they can be useful sometimes, are not what feelings were meant for. They were simply meant to be felt. And that blew my mind, and it still does. And so what this hour is a chance to just try it on and play with feeling our feelings. The cool thing about this call, well, I think there's a lot of cool things, like the fact that the three of us are here together. That's my number one cool thing about this call. But the way this is set up is I will make an invitation to you to feel your feelings about a specific thing. And the cool thing is, in the experiment, the only real invitation is to feel whatever you're feeling right now. So if I say something like, feel the feeling of your pet unicorn, and your brain is like, what the hell, Sarah? I don't have a pet unicorn. Why is Sarah so insane? That's a thought. The only real invitation is to feel the feeling of the thought, I don't have a pet unicorn. Why is Sarah so insane? You might just feel the feeling of why is Sarah so insane this entire call. Great. If that's what's available, feel it. And here we are in a lab or a playground of the experiment. So in just a moment, I'm going to make an invitation. I'm going to set a timer, and we'll feel the feeling of something for a minute or two. You might stick with that thing. You might not. Another groovy thing about the experiment is it requires no discipline. If I invite you to feel something and you feel it for 3 seconds, but we're actually doing this for 2 minutes, the only job you have is to feel whatever comes next. And that is, in its most succinct sentence, the experiment is an invitation to feel whatever you're feeling right now and to feel it all the way through. And I know I have felt a feeling all the way through, at least to my level of ability, when a new thought or a new feeling shows up. So again, I'll make an invitation here in a minute. But if you're done feeling that thing because a new feeling shows up or a new thought shows up in less time than I offer, great. Just go with whatever shows up, because that's the only thing this really is. With that, I'm going to make the first invitation. I'll make you an invitation. I will feel my feelings along with you. And then I will open up a conversation. If you have something you want to share from that, or if you have a question, there is no requirement that you share. Please do share or ask a question if you feel like doing it. Don't do it to save me. I am totally fine if we have a minute of awkward silence. If nobody has anything to share, we'll just do the next one. It's super fun when people have something to share, and it's super fun when people don't. So I'm getting my timer out. Here we go. And here's how this goes too. It's kind of wild. I don't know what the first invitation is yet. I'm going to close my eyes and see what it is. I feel like invitations show up perfectly for the 3 people or however many people are here. Okay. Okay, I was saying this other one ridiculously earlier, but let's just try it. For 1 minute, let's feel the feeling of our pet unicorns. I said it to be silly, but let's see what happens. Okay, so I like to close my eyes often when I do the experiment, but not always. Oh my gosh, I had my timer set for 20 minutes. We don't need 20 minutes of feeling the feeling of our pet unicorns. So, okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to close my eyes. 1 minute on the feeling of our pet unicorns. Let's see what happens. Okay, that was a minute. Who has something, a question or something they feel like sharing from that first of its kind experiment we just did? Wow, I'm so glad I went with that. Okay, I'm not going to share every time, or maybe I will, but I kind of went to this like, whoa, I have a pet unicorn. Let's see what happens. And I thought, no, I actually think I might be the unicorn's pet. Like, how could a unicorn be my pet? I couldn't own a unicorn. And then I thought, wow, if I was a unicorn's pet, it would probably be disappointed. Like, I don't goof around or rest enough. So, anyway, that was unexpectedly rich. Okay, let's see what the next one is. Hmm. Ooh, okay, here's what I got. And we'll do a minute on this one too. Feel the feeling of something that's uncomfortable. You can pick the thing or just feel the sense of discomfort. Let's see what's there. Something that's uncomfortable. Here we go. Okay, that was a minute with something that's uncomfortable. Who feels like sharing or has a question from that one? Thank you for sharing that. This is what you're pointing to is a place that I've used the experiment, and other people who have come to this call have used it as well. It's, being in that awkward situation, standing in front of your trainer in, your a Speedo, being with people you don't know, or even in a dark alley. Not that I've been in a dark alley, but in a situation where you're like getting vibes like I shouldn't be here. A lot of people have used the experiment as a tool to, instead of, or as a tool for pushing through, which I also kind of want to say, instead of pushing through. I don't know what your pushing through looks like, but mine usually looks like overriding my feelings and just going, versus feeling the feeling as the tool to move through it. I know I'm kind of using semantics there, but the last time I was in a cold plunge, which I do not enjoy, I was like, feel your feelings, Sarah. Feel it, feel it, feel it. And it was still deeply uncomfortable. And it was a wildly helpful tool to get through that first 60 seconds of nightmare. Um, that's my dramatic term for that. Yes, the invitation from the experiment is anytime there's something to feel, which again might be small, it might be physical, cold or hot. It might be the emotion of watching someone go through something hard. Dan and I both live in the Minneapolis area. There's lots of emotions flying around right now. The invitation is always to feel whatever is there to feel. And when a big thing is happening, like your body is freaking out because it's too hot or too cold for it, or you're watching a loved one in pain, or you're watching a community go through something, if the feeling is too big for you to handle, you will be, I call it, bounced out of the feeling, meaning you'll get something else to feel or a thought. And the invitation is to then feel whatever comes with that. So, for example, plunging your body into something freezing, who knows? Maybe your brain has you remember the time you fell off your bike when you were a kid. Great. Feel the feeling of the time you fell off your bike when you were a kid. right? Be present to whatever is showing up. I'm just plopping that in because, again, the experiment is simply an invitation to feel whatever is there. And what I love about it is if there's something too intense being offered to you, it will give you something else to feel. It won't force you to deal with something that's too big. I've been doing this on a regular basis since early May. And I can tell you what the gift is in my life. I don't know if it would be the same in your life. I also know that I've been in a lot of communication with other people who are doing this, and they've shared with me the gift that they've experienced, but I don't know if it would be the same for you. I feel comfortable saying one thing about, maybe it'll be a few things, but one thing in particular is one of the things David Hawkins talks about in the book, Letting Go, again, that inspired this, is he talks about how, and actually most of the book, Letting Go, is a description of the gift, which I think is a bold move because I'm not willing to write 250 pages on what comes from this because I think it's personal for the human. I will say this. One of the things he talks about is the more you do this work, you will likely notice changes in your life. And he recommends keeping track of that evidence because what our egos want to do is tell us that this is silly or a bad idea or a waste of time or you ought to be out doing something else other than this. And I will say in my own life, it has helped me have a different relationship with the things my ego wants me to do versus the things that might actually be the best thing for me. So he says that, and that is very much aligned with the experience that I have. And I guess I'm going to say one other thing. For me, and by the way, I consider myself the host of this thing. I am not the pro. I'm not the professional. I've had a lot, again, being in Minneapolis right now, I've had a lot of, what I like to say sometimes is on days when I'm not feeling my feelings, I say, I had a lot of invitations today. So sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to feel that, right? So I will say, when I am in the mode of feeling things, even though they might be big or small or giant or annoying or whatever, I feel my experience is, or the gift for me is, instead of taking a thing and like storing it somewhere, like in a random body part or a muscle or in the past or in the future, instead it's just here. Like, it's like I get a cupcake. Okay, I'll say my birthday was recently. I got a cupcake, and when it arrived, I put it in the fridge. I don't know why. I didn't leave it out for other people to eat. I put it in the fridge, and like 10 days later, I was like, what the hell is this cupcake? Like, cupcakes are meant to be eaten the day they are made. Instead of getting this gift of a feeling to feel and sticking it in the fridge to deal with later, it's like you're experiencing it in the moment instead of for sure guaranteeing. I want to say about me, instead of guaranteeing I'm going to have to deal with that cupcake later. And that has brought me a sense of the only word that's coming to me is control, but it's not the right word. Agency in my life. I get to feel these things. Doesn't mean I know what to do with it or that I like it, but I have agency in the midst of whatever's coming at me. I hope I didn't say too much. And by the way, but I did say the two things that are common. And the only real answer is, wow, I hope you go around in your life and play with this and see what happens and let me know if you think of it. That's my favorite thing, is to hear from people when they say, holy cow, this happened, or, oh my gosh, this is different. And there's a long list of groovy stuff I've gotten to hear, but I don't want to suggest that what happened to other people will happen to you. Okay. Okay, here's what I want to share. I am going to share a couple of surprise things that we can't actually try right now that I just want to put in your brain to look for. A couple of things I've discovered that it's really cool to feel is if you've got your wits about you, the next time you sneeze, attempt to feel the feeling of sneezing. It is a trip, but it takes a lot, like to be like, oh, feel it. The feeling of laughing. I wish I could like create a laugh right now. If you just like, hopefully sometime soon, when you laugh, you'll take a moment to feel the feeling of laughing. And please, if you do, let me know you did it. And then another really weird one, unexpected is, and I'm definitely not going to create this, although I could right now, is like the feeling of nausea, feeling the feeling of that. It's a really I mean, I'm not going to have you stick your finger down your throat, but but if you feel nauseous, like, ooh, feel the feeling of that. It's just kind of a trippy experience, but we can't create that here on the experiment playground. So I'm sort of saying that to say there's all these odd little moments in life that you may not have thought of, like, oh, that's an invitation to feel. It is, right? Like feel the feeling of laughing or feel the feeling of crying. Not necessarily the feeling of the emotion you're crying about, but the feeling of the act of crying. It's an interesting place. Okay. Oh, we're good on time. Okay. You ready for the next experiment, which will not be nausea or laughing or crying? Here's the invitation. I know both of you on some level or another, either at work, at different ways in your work, have teams that you interact with. Here's the invitation is for a minute, pick a team and feel the feeling of that team. And I don't mean the individuals. I mean the feeling of those humans together as a team. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? So like your boss and whoever else reports to them, or a project team. Like the feeling of that, or for that matter, whatever, your favorite sports team, the feeling of the team versus the feeling of the individuals is what I'm talking about. Like the feeling of that group of humans doing something together. Could even be like a place where you work out, the group of people who are there. Okay, I have to pick my team. Okay, I got it. All right, for a minute, feel the feeling of one team. Okay, that was a minute on that one. Who has a question or something they feel like sharing from that one? Going back to the question about the gift of this, I will say this. I'm not going to promise this will happen because everybody interacts in a different way. A common thing I've heard is when people feel the feeling of a group or a team or a crowd, is some people get an image. And the only reason I'm pointing that out is not to say if you don't get an image in your head, you're failing. That's not what I'm saying. My point is, when I'm doing the experiment, and lots of people, what I've heard is when you're feeling your feelings, there might be thoughts that come through, and it's clearly a thought that's like, oh, I forgot to get that at the grocery store, or why is that person doing that? Or it's an anxious thought coming from you. Great, feel the feelings of that. And there will be images or thoughts that show up, and they have a different feeling to them. For example, this image of pipe cleaners all over. And my invitation to you is to just pay attention to those things that drop in while you're doing the experiment that feel a little more, that have a different feeling to them. Like that image is wildly helpful, at least from my side of the screen. Like, whoa, this team is a bunch of pipe cleaners, or this group at a concert. When everybody came in, the pipe cleaners might be like that. But by the third song, all the pipe cleaners are kind of doing the same thing. It doesn't have to be pipe cleaners, doesn't have to be an image. It's just that these little things will pop in for people. For me, it often is an image. For other people, it's other stuff. It's like, oh, there's some cool information. Trust it. My whole point with that is trust those things that come in. And I want to clarify something, because in this, for this call and this thing I call the experiment, the only air quote work to do with the feelings is to feel them versus to shove them down or escape from them or express them. The point of them, though, goes on for infinity. For example, whoa, I feel uneasy all of a sudden. I'm going to trust it. I have agency. I don't need to override, because feelings are pure. Our interpretation of them is sometimes off, but what you're feeling is going to be accurate all the time. You might override it and be like, oh, whatever, I'm just whatevering. No, or you might go, I'm uneasy. Let me look around. Holy cow, this, and this. Yeah, the feeling comes first. It's kind of like, I've heard that before a hurricane comes, all the animals go inland. They feel it. They trust it. They don't override it. They go inland. Your feelings are the birds that are flying inland. I do want to say this. You started pointing to this discretionary energy thing. I will say, even though I just learned that term, my experience in my life and the other people who do this on a regular basis, there's a handful of people who come here regularly and do this regularly. I used to have a Marco Polo group where I would do an invitation maybe every couple of days. And then I moved it to Instagram, and now I might move it back to Marco Polo. But the people have been very engaged. Even though we didn't have this term called discretionary energy, that pointed exactly to what I feel like I have more of from doing this. But I can't say you are guaranteed, you do this for 10 minutes a day and you will have 25% more discretionary energy. Although, wouldn't it be cool? But okay, I have a timer that goes off with 10 minutes to the next hour, because I want to kind of close down this. This was a very, every single one of these calls is a one of a kind. It's never the same, because different people show up with different levels of interaction and questions and whatnot. One of the things that made this time different is we talked a lot more. Usually it's a more kind of quiet meditative. I love this. Here's the last things I want to say before I give you time to just get back into the flow of the rest of your day. In the end, the invitation from the experiment is to simply feel whatever is here right now. One thing I didn't say on the call today is I believe we were born with this. Like, we didn't actually, I don't think we are born with thoughts like, that is a pear. That is my mom, right? We're just like, that's a feeling, right? I really think the experiment is always running. It's just whether or not you take the invitation to tune into it. This is really simply an invitation to take the invitation of the experiment is to feel feelings, and at the very least to notice the invitations. Like, oh, that was an invitation to feel something. That was an invitation. That was an invitation. You can also go back and take invitations. For example, one invitation I've done from time to time on this call is say, remember a day that maybe you don't remember the details of it, but you remember the feeling of it. Like that day when you were a kid and you and your siblings made the fake slip and slide with the hose and the tarp. And it was such a great day. Go back, and you can just go back in time and feel the feeling of something. The other really important invitation I want to remind you of that we just talked about briefly today is find a place to keep the evidence of things that may have changed in your life. And for a lot of people in the experiment, they don't necessarily notice a change, but somebody else will say to them, oh, you really seem lighter lately. Or I thought you were going to get mad about that thing and you didn't. The first piece of evidence I noticed in my life is, for some reason, have been in the past a huge drama queen about unpacking from trips. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to unpack, and I wait a month to do it. I went on a trip and I came home and I just unpacked. It was like, whoa, okay, that's a difference in my life. So, I like a notes thing or your voice memo or a journal or something, just grab the little evidence of things that are different. And then, of course, the other invitation is come back. I'd love to see you back here. And let me know if you sneeze or you laugh or you cry or you're nauseous and you have your wits about you and you feel the feeling of it. I would love to talk with you about that.